So for this week, rather than record myself doing a tutorial, I think what I'd like to do is give you a few videos on setting up solid parts, creating stock, and moving the part around in the workspace. So you have written instructions for the tutorial, so you'll be able to follow along with that. And then this is something that I'd like you to practice and work on this week on your own time, just because what you're getting for files right now pretty much has all this set up for you. But in the future, you're going to be asked to set these up from scratch with just the solid model. So I kind of want to introduce you to that this week. So what I'm going to do is go up to the File menu. And what we're going to do is, we already have a brand new file open, okay? No machine selected or anything. But we're going to go File, and then Merge. And what Merge will do is that allows you to bring in SOLIDWORKS files, basically. If you use Merge rather than just Open, you can kind of set up the screen the way you want it before you start, and then you can bring in as many solid files as you want. So if you're bringing in fixturing, different parts, nuts, bolts, vices, stuff like that, you can continue to merge all these solids into the file. One thing I want to make note of before we start is when you open up the Merge menu, it's going to default to Mastercam files, okay? So if you're looking for a SOLIDWORKS file or a solid IGES or a step file, you have to make sure you change this filter to all files so that you can see what's in your folder. A lot of people open this and then try to ask themselves, where's the stuff I have in here? That's because this filter is on. So we'll turn that off. And I'm going to import the foot file from a separate assembly just to kind of start with. So we're going to open that. It will drop the solid into the workspace. And you can do positioning in this area, but just personal preference, I like to use different transform commands. So we're going to look at that to start with. So I'm just going to click OK. And I can rotate my mouse around and look at the part, confirm that it's the one that we wanted. I'm going to right click and look at top, and you'll notice right away that the orientation is off, okay? Right now it looks like one of our left or right hand views is actually in the top plane. So the first thing we want to do is fix that for ourselves. And what I like to do is use a transform command for that. Dynamic is, again, my preference. You can do this in a couple different places, but I'm going to teach you how to use transform dynamic right now. So again, transform tab, dynamic. It's asking us for the entities. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the solid. Maybe go into a little bit of an angle here so we can see it. Now I'm going to click OK, or end selection. And now we're going to start manipulating the geometry in the space here to get it in the right position that we want. So right now it's giving us what we call a gnomon. So it's an X, Y, and Z icon. Looks similar to the WCS icon in the bottom left hand corner. And we can use that to manipulate the part. So what it's looking for right now is an origin position that we're going to rotate around. For what we're doing right here, it doesn't really matter because I'm not really worried about the position in space right now. So to make it less complicated, I'm just going to click anywhere in space, drop it down with a left click, and now I need to think about how I want to rotate this in space. So right now, this is our top, and we want to make this surface our top position. So we're going to go from here to here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the axes that coordinates with that rotation. So it looks like it's going to be this arc in between the Y and the X. So it's real easy. I'm going to click on the center ring here between the Y and the Z, excuse me. I'm going to use my mouse to figure out what direction I want to go in. So I'm basically going from this side position here, and I want to look like this. And it's going to be a 90-degree move. Okay, so rather than doing it by hand and trying to get the right position here, we want to type that in. Okay, so without hitting anything else on the mouse, I'm going to type in 90 degrees. I'm going to hit enter once. That gives us a preview. Okay, so it locks in the 90, but we have not finished the command yet. You have to hit enter one more time after that to finish the command. I'm going to click OK. And now when I right click and I go to the top plane, you'll notice the top is now rotated in space, and it looks like it's correct. Okay, we're going to do that one more time, except we're going to rotate in a different direction now. So I want this surface to rotate 90 degrees the other way. It's good practice anyways. So we're going to go ahead and go to Dynamic again. I'm going to select that part, hit End Selection, and this time let's rotate around a certain spot. So let's say I want to rotate it based off the center of this circle. Okay, I'm just going to position my gnome in there by left clicking on that position. And now again, I want to rotate this surface down and to the right. So let's find the right axes for that. Looks like this will be the one. Okay, you see the preview with the compass. I'm going to left click on this arc, and I'm going to move it to preview it. So this is directional, so you see that we actually want a 90 degree, a negative 90 degree to get that to go to the proper position. So I'm going to go ahead with my keyboard, and go 90, negative 90. I'm going to hit enter once to get the preview. I'm going to hit enter again to finish that command, and then I'm going to click OK. So now I should be able to right click, go to top, and you see that we've rotated the part into the proper position that we wanted before. So now that we have the proper orientation of the part set up, we want to start looking at positioning now. In general, what you want to do is set your part up in relation to your home Mastercam home position. It makes stock setup easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my F9 key and find out where we are in space here. So just so we could do some practice, what I want to do is I want to set this up so that the bottom left hand corner, the sharp corner, would be where my 0, 0 point is for this. And you'll see why that's important when we go to stock in a little bit. You will notice that right now, there's nothing for us to snap to because this area actually has a chamfer to it. So this is where knowing how to draw in certain instances comes in handy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create some geometry and actually square this corner off so that I can use that for a snap point to then move it to our 0, 0 position here. So before I start anything, I'm going to go to my levels. I'm going to set up my naming convention. So I'm just going to call this piece a solid part for now. And then after that, I'm going to make a new level. And I'm going to create this. I'm going to call it Op10, because the first thing you do is have your operation call out in the front of the level. And I'm just going to call this wireframe geometry, so not for now. So anything I'm drawing for wireframe related to Op10 should go on this level. I want to make sure it's active by having the blue check mark there, which is perfect. And we don't need to be cute about this. I'm just going to go to the wireframe section. I'm going to grab my endpoint. I'm going to snap to the edge of that chamfer. I'm just going to go ahead and drop a line. And I'm going to do the same thing here. The only thing I care about is that they intersect. Okay, because I'm going to be using that point to snap up into this area here. Now that I have that, I'm going to show another command. It's under transform again, but this time instead of using dynamic, let's go ahead and just use translate. Okay, either one of these works, but I want to give you exposure to both. So transform, translate. It's asking us to select the entities we're going to move. I'm going to use a pick box, and I'm going to select everything on the screen and do an end selection. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a move starting from the top down. I'm going to move all the entities. I only want one instance. And then down here you can use delta. If you know the distance you want to change, if you know it's 1 inch, you can actually type it in. In this case, we don't really know what this distance is, so I want to use click points. So this vector from and to is what I'm going to use to move the part. I'm going to hit reselect. Now it's asking for a part to translate from, so I'm going to click the intersection of the two lines that we drew. That's the first selection point. Make sure I get the X for a snap point. And now I'm going to come up and select the 0, 0, 0 point. This is the F9 key that I hit. I'm going to click on that, and you'll see that the part has now moved in a preview to that location. If I like the preview, which I do, I'm going to click OK. And now we're in good shape. So now our 0, 0 point is the sharp edge of the part. And again, this isn't the WCS, this is just in the home screen. So, you know, we could delete these lines at this point, or if we think we're going to use them later on, we could simply close or hide that layer, make the top one active and hide that so we don't need to see those anymore. And then we could even turn our F9 key off at this point because we don't really need to see that anymore either. Remember to save often, so that's what I'm going to do right now. And let's go find this file here. Just going to go ahead and name this test, but again, you would use your last name, underscore, and then the file name afterwards as your nomenclature. Perfect. So we are basically all set up now with the part, and what I'm going to show you next is how we set up our stock. So in order to begin setting up our stock, the first thing we need to do is bring in a machine definition file. We're going to go to the machine tab, and this is going to be a milling machine. And in your instance, you're just going to be selecting the Haas mill. In this case, I only have the defaults loaded right now, so I'm just going to select the default milling machine for now. And then inside of the properties box, if you open the plus button next to it, you can see we have files, tool settings, and stock setup. I'm going to enter stock setup. And I'm first going to show you how to create a regular 2D wireframe stock. In the future, what we'll do is we'll be probably importing solid stock. But for this one, we're going to learn how to do the basic stock. There are a couple different areas. So the stock plane is top. That is the plane that we've been using to set this position up. So the stock plane of top is fine. The orientation is good. The shape is rectangular. By default, display is not turned on, but you're always going to want to turn that on so you can see the stock size. We also have a wireframe or solid selection. I'm going to leave it in wireframe for now. And then you see inside of this gray area here, we have a Y, an X, and a Z. So this is where you define your stock size. Based on the print that you cannot see right now, I'm going to create a 4" by 3.5" block that is a thickness of 0.63. Normally I will give you a stock size to define, or you may have to go and select your own size based off the blueprint that I give you. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and set up a stock of 4 in the Y, 3.5 in the X, and I'm going to put a 0.63 or 625 in for the size. Okay. This is just the definition. We're going to talk about this in a second. So let me go ahead and hit OK, and what that will do is that's going to give me a preview so that I can see what this looks like. Okay, good. So this is where we're starting. Now let me hit F9. You'll notice that the stock that we created is centered on our 0, 0 machine home point. Okay. Now this is why it becomes important to know where this orientation is for when you're setting this up. This will help us now that we know where these points are. So this is wrong. It actually looks like it's in the wrong orientation too. So I'm going to start by swapping this. So this is the 3.5. This is the 4. Okay, excellent. So this is the proper size. Now, and if I rotate, you can also see the 5/8. Okay, so you see that we have that all lined up okay. Now, the one area that deals with position is this area here, the stock origin. So you can see we defined our size here, and now we'll need to define our origin. So you'll notice that we have an arrow pointing to the center of the stock, and this is X0, Y0, Z0. So basically what that means is our stock is centered on 0, 0, 0, which is this point here. Now, we can actually change this by clicking inside of the gray box and pointing it in a different direction, in a different location. So it can be on center. However, we can also change it so that we can put our 0, 0 point in the bottom left-hand corner of the stock block. What that actually does is that will move this corner here from the bottom left up to here at 0 point. So I click OK, and that neatly drops it right on top of the part there. Now, if you didn't do that, you would also be able to do some math to get us there. So if you leave this in the center, what you would have to do, obviously, let me just reset that, is take half of the distance of these and compensate for that by putting them in here. So our x would be 2, our y would be 1.75, and our z would remain 0. Doing that also shifts the stock up in that direction, and we get the same result. However, our numbers may not always be this nice. So a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll set the part up like this so that I can easily change the origin point of the stock to the bottom left hand corner and just select it like that. Okay, so that concludes the stock setup for now for manufacturing this. If you don't want to see these lines, you can turn the display off at any time and put it away there. I recommend leaving it on most of the time because it's helpful to see that. There's also another area where you can change it, which is up here, stock display. You can also change it off here without having to go into the stock setup. So that concludes the stock setup portion. The next thing we're going to do is talk about planes, and we're going to go ahead and put a new plane on this part, but I'm going to make that a separate video just so it's easier to find. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.